morning, Grenada, Carriacou, and PT Martinique. Thank you so much for joining us. And wherever you're joining us from this morning, we want to say special welcome to you and thank you as well for joining us. Thank you to the media who are already online. We want to say we are still committed to providing you with timely updates as much as possible. And we have another update for you this morning, as promised. This morning, we're going to hear from the Minister and Prime Minister, Minister for National Security and Disaster Management, updates as we move ahead during the aftermath of Hurricane Beryl. Mr. Prime Minister.
Thank you, Press Secretary. Pleasant morning to the citizens of Grenada, Carriacou, and PT Martinique, as well as our brothers and sisters in the region and our citizens in the diaspora. It is day one after the passage of Hurricane Beryl, and as a nation, we are coming to grips with the reality of the devastation that the Category 4 hurricane has wreaked over Grenada, and in particular over Carriacou and PT Martinique, which bore the brunt of the passage of Hurricane Beryl as the eye of the hurricane passed directly over Carriacou and PT Martinique. Since yesterday afternoon, we've had very little communication with Carriacou and PT Martinique. It was not until this morning that I was able to speak with Minister Tevin Andrews by satellite phone. The situation is grim. There is no power. There's almost complete destruction of homes and buildings on the island. The roads are not passable, and in many instances they're cut off because of the large quantity of debris strewn all over the streets, and obviously the danger posed by downed power lines. Minister Andrews has tentatively reported at least 2 deaths as a result of the passage of Hurricane Beryl. The possibility that there may be more fatalities remains a grim reality, as movement is still highly restricted because of the fact that the gas stations are also completely destroyed. It is difficult to get fuel to even the heavy equipment operators for them to begin any clearing of the roadway. So mobility on the island itself is heavily restricted. The Met Office still has in place a marine advisory against small craft. And so, although we had planned at 6 a.m. for both Coast Guard craft to depart to Carriacou, we have not been able to do so as yet because of that marine advisory. And so, the Coast Guard is delayed in terms of it being able to get to Carriacou because of the marine advisory. We expect the advisory to be relooked at midday today, and if the conditions improve, then the Coast Guard will do so. In the meantime, we are going to rely on a private craft, which is much larger, to take the Commissioner of Police and members of NADMA and the technical assessment team to Carriacou. I have also requested assistance from the region for helicopters, because even if we land at the Lauriston Airport, until the roadways are cleared, movement within Carriacou itself will still be severely restricted. So that is the immediate update in relation to Carriacou and PT Martinique. We continue to ask that you keep them in your thoughts and in your prayers. So quick summary, it is reported that at least 2 fatalities. There is widespread destruction. The possibility of more fatalities is a reality. And internal movement within Carriacou and PT Martinique is still very much restricted. 1, because of the lack of fuel for heavy equipment to clear the debris in the roadway. 2, because of the danger posed by downed electrical lines. And 3, even if we were able to get to Lauriston Airport, we still face those obstacles. We have requested assistance for helicopter relief from our brothers and sisters within the region, and as soon as we have that, we will seek to give a further update to the people of Grenada, Carriacou, and PT Martinique. But in the meantime, we are going to rely on a larger craft to take the Commissioner of Police, security officers, and some technical people to Carriacou, and once they get there, we will have a further update. The Cabinet of Grenada will meet at 3:30 p.m. this afternoon in emergency session so that we can begin to plan the response to the devastation wrought by Hurricane Beryl. I should point out that the north of the island has suffered significant damage and destruction as well. To some extent, the north of the island, including Carriacou and PT Martinique, and the south of the island are almost 2 completely different places. In the south of the island, particularly the southern tip, there's minimal damage. All power has already been restored, but that is not the case in the north, the western and eastern parts of the island. We're still dealing with road clearance to make the roads passable. Power is still out, and as you're aware, numerous of our citizens have lost their roofs and do not have any shelter over their heads. Our shelters remain open. The team at NADMA and our district coordinators and deputy coordinators and our volunteers are working to continue providing the necessary support, both in terms of physical needs and psycho support to those citizens who are in shelters. We expect that most citizens may have to go into shelters temporarily in cases where they've lost their roofs. The state of emergency remains in effect, and this is because we want to ensure that there's calm and that we can have a planned and predictable response to this terrible tragedy that has befallen us. After the cabinet meets at 3:30 this afternoon, we will provide a further update. We anticipate by then that all restrictions, obviously, on the movement of people are likely to be lifted so that we can go ahead with the planned response. But for now, we still want to urge our citizens to exercise caution, to exercise care, particularly in areas where there is damage or destruction. RENLEC will continue to work assiduously to restore power in areas where it can do so safely. Of course, where there are damaged homes or compromised homes, power will not be restored until it is clear to do so. NOASA is conducting its post-assessment this morning. We anticipate that we will hear from them by mid-morning as to the restoration of water in areas where it can do so. Telecommunications should be improving throughout the day. Both providers had challenges in the immediate aftermath of the passage of the eye of Hurricane Beryl. We expect that we should be able to communicate better. In the case of Carriacou, communication still remains down and it is still a challenge. So this is the update at this stage. I will have a 10 a.m. call with my colleague heads of government from CARICOM to provide them with an update, and as well also to plan the regional response through SIDEMA and NADMA. After that meeting, I will brief the cabinet, and after the cabinet meeting this afternoon, we will provide a further update to the public. Government ministers, members of parliament, are going to spend this morning in their respective constituencies providing support and leadership to the recovery and relief efforts, working through the district coordinators and deputy coordinators and the volunteers in their communities and constituencies. We are going to be asking for a rapid assessment of the damage and destruction done so that could help inform our discussions at 3:30 p.m. this afternoon. Just to summarize, though, our main priority is Carriacou and PT Martinique. The immediate need for assistance would be ensuring that we can get large craft that can treat with the conditions of the sea so that we can get to Carriacou to be able to provide some relief, as well as seeking assistance from our regional neighbors for helicopters that can get into different parts of the island in light of the internal challenges with movement. I want to point out that we have been in communication with the owners of the Osprey lines and the various vessels. These vessels were moved to Trinidad and Tobago for safety because of the impending storm. We spoke late last night. They are mobilized and these vessels are being stocked with relief supplies. And as soon as that is completed, they too will be coming to Carriacou to provide much needed support. So if we have anyone who owns large craft and are prepared to support and have the craft used for relief efforts, we will ask you to gather either at Yacht Club or the Port Louis Marina so that we can provide the necessary relief supplies to our brothers and sisters in Carriacou. We anticipate that in the immediate following 24 hours, our main priority would be to ensure that we can clear the roadways within Carriacou and PT Martinique so that we can have movement, and two, that we can provide temporary housing and shelter to persons in Carriacou and PT Martinique. SVG Air is on standby. Their craft was moved to Antigua for safekeeping. Once the Maurice Bishop International Airport gives the all clear that the runway in Carriacou is safe for use, their aircraft will also be available both for passenger and cargo use. But we obviously will not fly them into Lauriston Airport if when we get there we are unable to move the supplies to other parts of the island because of the challenges with the roadway. So that's the main thing that we are contending with. We need to ensure that internally we can move within Carriacou and PT Martinique. We anticipate that by early afternoon we should have a further update on the status in Carriacou and PT Martinique. And when we do our post-cabinet briefing this afternoon, we will provide a further update to you. In the meantime, I wish to point out that for today, essential services workers are required to attend to work as put out by the notice. We are aware that some of the hardware stores have asked whether their workers are required to come to work as well. Because of the challenges in the north with ensuring that it is safe to move about and that the roadways are cleared, for today's purposes, we would say no, but certainly by tomorrow we'd expect all hardware stores to be open to be able to provide support and relief to persons who would need it. But we will continue to provide you with updates throughout the course of today. Thank you very much, and let us remain united, let us remain strong, and let us rally behind our brothers and sisters, particularly those impacted in the north of the island and those impacted in Carriacou and Petit Martinique. I should point out that Union Island in the Grenadines is also significantly impacted like Carriacou. I spoke late last night with Prime Minister Gonzalez, and we will also be looking to coordinate our response to help our brothers and sisters in the Grenadine Islands as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prime Minister. We do have some updates, not updates, but journalists online who may wish to ask questions at this time. And if you do so, please proceed. Mikey, you have a question? Mikey, you can proceed with your question. Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister, again for your updates. We were reminded that we are still in a state of emergency and only essential workers are out at this time. I know I've seen some people doing some work on the road. If you wish, you can do so. There's no problem. There's no harm in cleaning up your yard and probably helping your neighbors to do so as well. We did put out a notice for some volunteers this morning to load the boats, and we have some essential services, not essential services, but we have some relief supplies that if you wish to contribute, you can do so as well. We are here at the NADMA headquarters, so this might be a good place, a good drop-off point. Sanitary products are needed at this time, adult diapers, bottled water, if you have extra that is, and non-perishables like canned foods. So we await media. Kalistra, do you have a question?
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead, Rena.
Hi, so good morning to everyone again. I'm happy that we're all safe and alive. And condolences to those who would have lost their loved ones in Carriacou and in Grenada. My question is relating to Princess Royal Hospital. What's the situation with there and the patients as well as the elderly homes? Any idea as to what is happening with these individuals?
The report we have from Minister Andrew is that the hospital is significantly damaged as well. As I indicated to you this morning, the conversation was very brief and by satellite phone. And because of his own inability to travel throughout Carriacou and Petit Martinique, the information, in a sense, is all tentative. But he has indicated that the hospital is damaged. I can't give you an update as to the actual state of the patients.
The northern side of Grenada, what is happening as it relates to relief to them? Has officials from NADMA already on the foot going to that area? And other parts of the islands that, well, the east, southeast, and other part of the island that are significantly damaged.
Right, as I indicated in my update, the district coordinators and the deputy coordinators and the volunteers are all in the shelters and working with providing support there. The chief technical officer from the Ministry of Infrastructure and his team, including road officers, are out assessing the damage. And since yesterday, in some instances, the road clearance had already commenced. So that assessment by the team at the Ministry of Infrastructure and the road officers will continue throughout this morning. And we expect that they will report in time for the cabinet meeting at 3:30 this afternoon. In addition, as I indicated, the instructions to our members of parliament and government ministers who represent the various constituencies in the north, west and east of the island is to stay within the constituencies to assist with the damage assessment and to ensure that support is provided to the NADMA volunteers so that we can get a rapid assessment of the state of the infrastructure as well as persons who are impacted by the hurricane.
Okay.
Good morning, Mr. Prime Minister.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Go, proceed. You can proceed. I believe I heard a male voice. You can proceed. Please identify yourself and your media house, and you can proceed.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Prime Minister. Dennis Chabrol, Caribbean News Desk from Demerara, Wales. Sir, my apology. I just got into the press conference a bit late. So can you please, forgive me for that, could you elaborate, please, on the number of deaths, the gender, ages, and location?
Dennis, good morning and welcome. I can't elaborate on this. All I can say to you is that we've had one report of a fatality in Grenada. That happened in the River Road area when a tree fell on a house. In the case of Carriacou, the reports we have are 2 fatalities. I cannot give you any more details on that. As I indicated, we've had virtually no communication with Carriacou in the last 12 hours, except for briefly this morning by satellite phone. Movement within Carriacou itself is severely restricted because of the significant destruction and the blockage of the roadways and the risk posed by the dung power lines. And so internal movement within Carriacou is at this time still very limited. The seas are very rough. There's a marine advisory against small craft operating. That has actually prevented our Coast Guard from going to Carriacou at this time. We are seeking and have gotten the assistance of a larger craft that is being loaded with supplies, security personnel, and a technical team from the National Disaster Management Agency. We anticipate they will be in Carriacou in the next couple of hours. And when they get there, then we expect we may have the opportunity for a further update or briefing. But because of the limitations of internal movement within Carriacou, you have to understand in the Grenadine Islands, it's a challenge at the best of times to treat with things like gasoline. So the gasoline stations have been destroyed, and as a result, the heavy equipment machines don't have fuel that would allow them to even begin the clearance of the roadways so that people could move. And then there's significant risk associated with it because of the fact that the power lines are down. And at this stage, we can't tell whether there's live electricity or not in them. So except for the report that there's at least 2 fatalities, possibly more because of the sheer scale of destruction, I don't have further details at this time.
Thank you. Dennis, do you have another question?
Yes, I just wanted to broadly ask Mr. Prime Minister, what concrete commitments have you gotten from your CARICOM colleagues, aside from Prime Minister Gonzalez, who has already stated that the 2 of you will coordinate? What other concrete commitments have you gotten from the rest of the CARICOM to provide assistance to your country?
The commitments are concrete. My colleagues are really on standby for us to indicate when to go. We have a 10 a.m. Briefing this morning, and after the 10 a.m. briefing, we would mobilize. I've specifically requested helicopter assistance as an immediate need for us to be able to access the island because of the state of the seas and because of the internal challenges. I'm awaiting confirmation of this. But I'm assured, both in terms of material supplies, both in terms of logistics. In the case of Guyana, a plane is already loaded and waiting. As I pointed out earlier, even if the plane lands in Carriacou, we have to be able to move internally within Carriacou. So we want to make sure that that takes place first, so that when the relief supplies come in via the airport or the port, we can actually get them to the villages within the island. So it is still early days. I mean, it is essentially the first morning after the aftermath of the hurricane. And we have to make sure that when the relief supplies land in Carriacou, that we're able to move them. So that part we have to take care of first, or seek the assistance of our colleagues by having the helicopters come in, so that if we can't move the relief supplies by land, we can move them by air into those villages that are cut off, and it would then make for easier distribution to the citizens.
Thank you. If you have one last question, we can take that now.
Yes, I have one last question. Prime Minister, I know earlier on in our briefings, you would have told us that the Central Police Station did have a small damage. Is any of our other essential areas having or received any damage, like our hospitals? And Tommy, compared to Hurricane Ivan, I know that you're waiting for a bit of briefing as it was to the extent of the damage, but compared to Hurricane Ivan, would you say that we passed through fairly well, except for our sister island?
Well, I would say that's my initial assessment. Carriacou and Petit Martinique, I think the scale is probably Ivan-like or even worse, given the size of the islands. in the case of Grenada, the damage is largely concentrated to the northern part of the island. The south is, to a large extent, relatively unimpacted. So that would be my initial assessment. As Mr. Sylvan McIntyre said at the briefing, the last briefing we had last night, because the all clear was only given at 8 p.m. last night, and because power was out in the areas most impacted, we have not yet been able to make any what I would call meaningful assessment of the extent of the damage and loss suffered in the north of the island. So I still don't want to give any sort of definitive response to this. This is simply a very preliminary assessment of the damage.
Anything as it relates to hospitals, any damages or anything like that?
The hospital, as I said in Carriacou, the report is that it is damaged. In Grenada, as I've said, the actual assessment has not yet been conducted simply because the all clear was given at 8 p.m. tonight. The teams are out doing that now. Certainly, as of last night, we did not hear of any major damage to the main hospital. I can't say whether there was any damage to the hospital in Maribor. There was a threat that the roof of the Mungay Mental Hospital may have come off, but as of last night, the information we have is that it stayed on. But we'll obviously still have to assess to see whether it is, in fact, whether its integrity is compromised.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rina. I don't see any other indication that we have questions, but I'll open the floor one last time. If any of the other media houses online, if you have questions at this time, you may proceed with them.
Good morning, Callistra. Did we get an update during this briefing about water? Has NOASA given any information on what their plans are for today?
I indicated that NOASA's briefing last night indicated that from sunrise it will be conducting the assessment of the plant, and then it will make an announcement. As of this moment, I do not have any further update from that particular status, but I expect that as soon as the assessment is finished, they will indicate to the public the state and the timelines for reopening of the plant.
All right, and Prime Minister, you've given some of your itinerary for today, including an emergency cabinet meeting, but when would you also, I'm sorry, I was off this Zoom for a few minutes, so I may have missed some of that as well. When will you be going to Carriacou? Are you going to Carriacou?
I do plan to go to Carriacou. Let me just repeat the state of things in Carriacou. Going there by craft, as in sea craft, is challenging at this time because the Met Office has advised against small craft going to Carriacou simply because of the danger of swells. In fact, our 2 Coast Guard vessels have been advised not to go at this time because it may run the risk of being overrun by the swells. As a result, we are seeking the use of private larger craft to get there. The Commissioner of Police, ACP John Mitchell, NADMA officials, and other essential public utility officials are going there via that private craft this morning. Movement within Carriacou itself is severely restricted because of the down power lines. And so the advice from Minister Andrews at this point in time is that unless or until we can actually move within Carriacou, I may very well find myself, if I get there by boat, stuck at Hillsborough and not being able to actually do any assessment. Or if by chance the airport can be used, even if I land at the airport, getting out of the airport may be a challenge because of the sheer danger in terms of the debris and the power lines across the road. As a result, as I said, we've requested helicopter assistance from the region. I have a 10 a.m. meeting with my CARICOM colleagues, and thereafter it would put me in a better position to know the time frame for this happening. If we can address the internal movement within Carriacou, my intention is still to go to Carriacou today. SVG Air is on standby to fly, subject to confirmation that there is no debris on the Lauriston Airport. And I'm ready and willing to go once when I get to Carriacou, I'm actually of use and can move within Carriacou. And obviously, we're talking about Carriacou, but I want to emphasize Petit Martinique is in the same position, and given its much smaller size, I don't actually have an update with any specific details in terms of the state of Petit Martinique at this time, because Minister Andrews and the staff at the ministry, they have obviously not been able to get to Petit Martinique either.
All right, thank you, Prime Minister. An aerial tour is what I would recommend for you at this time and in the immediate few days in Carriacou, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your counsel.
All right, thank you, Callistra. And any other journalists, if you have a question, this might be a good time to ask them.
Yes, Mr. Prime Minister, please allow me to ask preliminarily, what would you say would be the likely impact of the storm on one, your tourism industry, and two, your spice industry?
Well, I'll take the spice industry. Given the damage to the north of the island, where the bulk of the spices are grown, and the western side, we certainly expect that will take a beating. And given the nature of spices, obviously, recovery is not something that is going to be long-term. Thankfully, we've had minimal damage or impacts to the south and eastern part, southeastern parts of the island where the main tourist plant is located. In fact, we've had no reports thus far of any damage to any hotels. And so to that extent, we are optimistic that it should not be a major impact in relation to tourism. Carriacou, however, is also a tourist destination, and clearly it will impact tourism there to some significant degree. In fact, this Wednesday, we were expecting the delivery of the underwater sculptures to form Carriacou's first underwater sculpture park. We expect that project will now be significantly delayed in light of the damage to the infrastructure and the housing stock and the economy of Carriacou. So that's my initial assessment.
Would your stockpiles of spice for export be affected as well?
I can't answer at this stage because I don't have any reports as to whether the storage facilities where the spices are stored have been impacted or not. But I think after further assessment, we would know whether that is the case or not. But certainly in the context of the destruction to spices itself, I suspect with the wind that a lot of the nutmegs, cocoa and other things may very well have come down.
Thank you.
And thank you, Dennis, for your question. If we have no one else online, we'll wrap up for this morning. Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister, one more time. I'm not sure, would you like to make some final closing statements before we wrap up?
Well, no, I just want to use the opportunity again to thank all Grenadians who've expressed solidarity and offers to help both within Grenada and in the diaspora and the region. I want to again thank my colleagues for the tremendous support and solidarity that they've shown thus far throughout this process. Clearly, this is a traumatic event in our history. Coming on the 50th anniversary of independence, we have no choice but to rise from the ashes, to remain united and to rebuild. And we should never waste a crisis. So I think this is an opportunity again for us to strengthen our response, preparation and response to natural disasters, which clearly are going to continue happening. This is overwhelming proof of the dramatic change in climatic conditions and its impact on us as small island developing states. And I don't think we need to prove our losses here. And so when we speak to those nations that have created this climate crisis based on the burning of fossil fuels, we have yet another clear and overwhelming evidence of the fact that we are constantly facing an existential threat to our way of life brought about by climate change. And so we want them to move past the talking and be able to realize that resources are in fact needed to build our resilience and to build our sustainability against this ever-present threat that they have created. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Prime Minister and Minister for National Security and Disaster Management. You have been on the front line, and we really, really appreciate your hard work and dedication. Today, some of us journey up to Carriacou. We want to continue to be safe, and we want to continue to urge you, citizens of Grenada, to continue to be safe. And if you wish to donate any supplies, we are here at the NADMA headquarters. This might be a good drop-off point to begin with, and then we'll give you more information as to where you can assist. And we really want to thank you once again for joining us, and thank you for helping us to push out the information, and we really appreciate that. Have a great Tuesday morning, and be kind to somebody today and reach out to a neighbor who may be in need. Thank you.